I should be writing, I think it's 378. It's for June 26th, 2017. Hi there. Welcome to I Should Be Writing, the podcast for wannabe fiction writers. I'm your host, Mer Lafferty. And if you can't tell by the ambient noise, it is a car cast. Yep, I haven't done one of these in a while, but it has to do with being really busy and thinking, well, the only time I'm not doing something with my hands, eyes, or voice is in the car. Although, I am driving and watching the road, but, it made more sense in my head. Anyway, I think it's funny that I was told over a decade ago that I should be introducing my shows with the show number and not the date, because as shows get older and older, the number is what matters, not the date. So in 5 years, if you're listening to this, you're not going to care that it's June 26, 2017, unless, something awesome or catastrophic happens today, and then it's all creepy and stuff. Man, I'm just going all over the place with my mind, aren't I? But yeah, the problem is when I'm away from the computer and not looking at my blog where the last episode was posted, I can't always remember what episode number it is, but I always know what the date is. Well, usually. So I'm going to talk today about preparation. Really nothing has changed with me. I'm still doing a lot of proposal stuff. I'm doing a lot of podcasting stuff. I was on vacation the past weekend. And yes, I did just take a vacation, but these are 2 vacations that were planned by somebody else. So kind of had to go with the dates that were good for everybody. So for one group, the week before last was good, and for another group, this past weekend was good. So a lot of traveling around, a lot of wearing myself out traveling around, and a lot of not working. But I did get a lot of writing done over the week-long break, but not so much this past weekend because we were playing a lot of games. But I want to talk about preparation because I'm not good at it. So let me tell you my thoughts here. I was reading another writer's page, and it's one of those writers who writes books on writing and self-publishes books on writing and writes a lot and always has blog posts up about writing. And if I sound disdainful, I am not. I'm jealous. Because even though I can talk into the microphone about writing forever, I'm not good at blogging about it, which is weird because I'm a writer. But I try not to unpack that and just say I'm a fiction writer. And that's what makes it okay. So anyway, somebody was talking about writing a whole bunch at one time, and how one thing you need to do is be prepared for that. And I thought, wow, I'm not always prepared for something like that, because I don't outline, and I prefer by the seat of the pants. But I'm also, I don't know, I guess since I don't have a disciplined enough schedule, I don't know that I'm going to write X number of words when I sit down. But then I thought about other problems I've had preparing for things, namely recording. For example, last year I was so worried about the live ditch diggers, one aspect of it, that I completely bungled the other half and didn't get the audio. And didn't get the video. I purchased tools, video tools to make this happen and stuff. I've been at cons with my recorder and found out that the battery's dead. And this past weekend, I was in the same place as my co-host for Ditch Diggers, Matt Wallace, and we sat down to record an episode of Ditch Diggers live, because it's always more fun when we're together so we can see each other. And we were talking for about 20 minutes, and I looked down, and my disc was full. My memory on my recorder was full. I don't even know when it cut out. If you listen to Ditch Diggers, you'll find out next week when I salvage whatever I could salvage out of that. And I'm like, I've been doing this for so many years, and I'm still screwing it up. And I thought, maybe I should just have a checklist. I've started to have a checklist when I record to make sure that I cover all of the housekeeping stuff at the end. You know, my website, where my books are available, etc. But, I'm starting to think a checklist for other stuff might be good. And then a checklist for writing. See, I brought it back around. And you think if you do something all the time, you don't need a checklist. But I remember an anecdote about a hospital that went through its proper order of operations from, hand washing to checking on X, Y, and Z for the patient. And the doctors and nurses chafed at it because they saw it as an insult. But when the administration said you have to do these checklists, they did, and infections went way down because the doctors and nurses were doing things that they always thought they did, but maybe they, cut some corners or skipped or whatever. And really, for recording on the road, there's like 3 things on my list. Have a fresh battery. Make sure that I have enough memory. Bring the recorder. Bring a tripod. There's number 4. So if I manage to do these things, then maybe I can handle Ditch Diggers Live at Worldcon. Speaking of which, I'm working on getting guests for that. I'm very excited. But I need to confirm before I can announce, obviously, because that's just awkward. But I plan on getting a bunch of non-live, non-audience interviews as well for both not Ditch Diggers, but I Should Be Writing. If you're new to the show, because I've been getting a couple of emails, I have one podcast that's for wannabe writers where I discuss the issues you can come up against when you're starting to write, and a lot of times the issues are mental or emotional, or sometimes they actually have to do with your story, but I go all over the place. But it's very beginner focused and encouraging. And my other show, Ditch Diggers, is I Should Be Writing is clean. Ditch Diggers is explicit, and it's with my co-host Matt Wallace, who's another writer, friend of mine. And we talk about the business of writing, the things you can come up against with editors or agents or fans or planning out series or whatever. How to be a good author at a con, how to attend a con as a burgeoning writer, how to attend a con like a pro, I think is what I'm trying to say. So if you don't mind some swearing and banter, then Matt and I talk over at Ditch Diggers. And if you just want the clean attaboy, attagirl cast, that is this one. So let's talk about preparation for writing. Now, while I don't like to tie my writing to a ritual, because if that ritual is taken away, I worry I won't be able to write, there still are some things that you can do to prepare yourself for writing. And this has to do with usually getting a hot beverage of some sort. It can include making sure everybody knows, if you're not alone in the house, making sure everybody knows that you're writing. Sometimes in public, if you're writing at a library or a coffee shop, all this means is putting in headphones. Even if you're not listening to anything, the headphones are a good bubble. You'll want handy what you wrote the day before. In the digital age, I'm assuming that just means you scroll up. But it's good to read where you left off and any notes you might have written to make sure you're starting the writing in the right mental zone. Now, this is important, and I don't do this, but if I'm thinking of doing a preparation checklist, I'm going to add it. And that's turn off all the things that tell me that there are emails or texts coming in. On the computer, that's easy. That's just closing the browser. But with a smartphone and a smartwatch, they let me know all the time that people are contacting me. And more often than not, it's nothing of consequence, but I still get that, ooh, who emailed me feeling. Maybe it was my agent emailing me with a big deal, right? No, it's that mailing list you're on that you never participate in. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. So, but really, it's cut out the distractions. And sometimes that means an app. I've recommended the app. A lot of people have discovered it and been grateful. The Forest app. You can have it in your browser and you can have it on iOS. And I don't know where else you can get it, but I do know about those two things. It just means that if you're supposed to concentrate and not touch your phone, or I'm not sure how the browser one works. I've only used that once, but I think it works like there's a list of sites that if you go to, that's considered breaking whatever you're trying to do. And what happens is a little tree starts to grow when you set your timer. And if you make it to the end of your timer, you've got a little tree. And if you do not make it to the end of your timer, then your tree dies. And then if you do this throughout the day, you'll have a little grove of trees or a little grove of dead zone, which is depressing. So it's surprisingly effective because, it tracks all this. You can't erase a dead tree. It's just there. So start your Forest app. Know what your goal is, whether it's word count, time, or just finishing a certain scene. Some people just like to sit down and write and see what happens, but I think for most people, it's a good idea to set some sort of goal for your writing. Time and word count are the most popular. And I'm not telling you how much time or how many words to write, because that is up to you. If you're typing on something that's not plugged into the wall, make sure that you have enough charge, especially if you're going somewhere. If you're going somewhere, then make sure you have a power cord or you have plenty of charge. And I know this all seems obvious, but if all doctors and nurses washed their hands, hospitals wouldn't have as many infections as they do. So you gotta be reminded of these things sometimes. Considering how many times I've gone out to write and not brought my power cord and brought a laptop with, 5% battery, or the times that as I mentioned, I've screwed up a recording on the road, or the times that I just let myself be distracted over and over and over again because I don't turn off the distractions when I write. I think it is important to have this checklist, and I'm probably going to make one when I get home and I edit this, and I'll go through and listen to all my list again and make one, because it's a good idea. So here's a fun little anecdote. I've been getting a lot of attention lately from publicists. A lot of people want their authors to be on my show, which is very gratifying. Some don't know what the show's about, so they try to give me like business writers and science writers. And while at one time I did interview Mary Roach because I'm a huge fan of her nonfiction stuff, I typically stick with science fiction. It's what I do. Those are the people I interview. But one, Dean Koontz's publicist got in touch with me, and that was exciting. So we were working on setting up an interview with him, and then we had to eventually cancel it because Dean won't work with Skype. They didn't want me to call him with Skype. And that's how I record. So that was unfortunate, and you kind of want to go, come on, people, get with technology. But I guess, He doesn't have to have Skype. He's Dean Koontz. And he probably doesn't need my listeners because he's Dean Koontz. So I'm sorry I was not able to bring you a Dean Koontz interview. But I have a lot of other publicists I need to get back to because I've just gotten a lot of email lately. So I'm guessing that's it. I've arrived at my destination. I have nothing more to say on the subject of preparation. Just think about what you need before you write. Think about what tears you out of writing. I didn't say anything about websites. And that's tricky. Because sometimes you need to look something up. And it's a quick look up. And then you keep going. And if you don't look it up, it's hard to continue with your scene. And to that I say, if you can, make a note and say, just look up whether I'm talking about Minneapolis or Duluth here. And then just keep going. The notes to yourself can be very useful. But yeah, make your preparations, make your preparation list, see if that helps you do a little bit of focusing. So I am having to do my end of podcast banter here with without my list because it's at home. But if you want to email me, that's mightymer@gmail.com. The blog and show notes are at merverse.com. You can support me and the podcast at patreon.com/mightymer. You can do it for $1 a month. Just $1. It's pretty awesome. If you want to know what else I work on besides doing podcasts, I have books. I have a science fiction book called 6 Wakes that is out now and has gotten excellent reviews. And I have a book based on this podcast called I Should Be Writing that is coming out in August. Pre-orders are just like ice cream to publishers. They love it. So if you want to help out authors, pre-order. I didn't mention it before, but I did say on my last show that I had some review copies to give away. The response was immediate and engulfing is the word I'm looking for. And it was awesome. And I'm so glad so many people were excited about the book. Unfortunately, I was only able to give out 15 copies and those went fast. So I'm sorry. That giveaway is closed. Thank you to everybody who tried. Thank you to everybody who told me how much they want the book. It's just very exciting. It's lovely to hear. I'm also an editor. I haven't been talking about this mainly because I juggle a lot of stuff, but I am the co-editor of Escape Pod again. I'm back with Escape Pod. I am co-editing, and we do free science fiction stories every week. We're a pro-paying market, and I'm just very proud to be on board with Nebula-nominated author Divya Breed. So if you enjoy science fiction short stories, then please, that's escapepod.org. Have I forgotten anything? I don't think so. But I hope you're having a good summer or winter, depending on where you are in the world. And I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. And until then, you should be preparing and then writing.